Hello, everyone. My name's Wendy Barlow. I'm from Cohen Tucker and Adis. I'm a supervising attorney with the firm. I know it's been a little bit since we've done a video for YouTube. It's kind of been slow in the sense of not a lot of big things happening with immigration. Um, so, not much to talk about, which is good and bad. It's always great when there's something new to discuss. Uh, and get feedback on. At the same time, it's kind of nice that things aren't changing constantly like they were during the previous administration. So today, I'm going to talk to you about the pending government shutdown. It is looking like it's very likely that the U.S. government will shut down effective October 1st because there has been no movement on the bills that would fund the government for the next fiscal year. Um, Altogether, it's about 12 spending bills that need to be passed to run the government for the next fiscal year. None of those have been passed, and also they have not done anything on a continuing resolution, which would just essentially allow the government to continue to be funded at where it is until they actually pass budgets. Welcome to the U.S. and our mess of a political system right now. But I digress, and let's move on to what you actually might want to know. So, if you have an immigration case pending, how will a government shutdown impact you? Some government employees, let me restart. It depends. It depends on what kind of case you have and where it's pending. So, for example, if you have a matter pending with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, commonly referred to as USCIS, you're likely not to experience any setbacks. USCIS is fee funded, so all those filing fees you pay actually fund the agency, and therefore they're not reliant on appropriations in the budget to operate. Now, if for some reason the fees were not enough to cover operations, that could be a problem. But right now, government shutdowns generally do not impact USCIS. There are a few tiny little areas it could, and that is along the E-Verify system, because that is run using appropriated funds, as well as the EB5 Investor Regional Center Program and Conrad 30 waiver program and non-minister religious workers. Now, the EB5 Immigrant Investor Regional Center Program has actually been reauthorized through September 30th, 2027. So it should actually not suffer any impact of a government shutdown. The other areas could. One of the biggest thing is the non-minister religious workers, because the program sundowns on September 30th. And so those cases would not be moving forward. The U.S. Department of State, if your case is with the Department of State. So, for example, you have an immigrant visa application pending, or you have an upcoming interview on a visa application, such as an H-1B or an L-1, E-2, B-1, B-2, whatever it is, whether it's work or a visa to come visit. Those also should not be impacted too much. Again, visa and passport operations are fee funded, which means they're not subject to appropriations from the U.S. government to operate. Now, that being said, if there are consulates that do not receive sufficient funding through fees, those could be impacted if there's not enough money essentially to operate. This may cause reduced staffing. And in general, reduced staffing at the consulate could also impact operations, because even though the person's not related to a visa officer, they have to have things like security guards and administrative staff. And if those individuals are furloughed, it could cause some delays. If the Department of State gets to a point where they do not have sufficient funds at those embassies and consulates, they will essentially go to a position where they only handle diplomatic visas and serious emergencies like life and death matters. That will be announced. So if you do have concerns, you can always check the embassy's website in advance of any scheduled appointment to make sure your appointment is still on. Customs and Border Protection. Those are the officers at the ports of entry, so the airports, as well as along the northern and southern borders. These are officers who conduct inspection and law enforcement are considered essential, so they will continue to work during a government shutdown. This means that the ports of entry will remain open. If you're coming to the U.S. for a visit or to work on a work visa or because you have an immigrant visa, you should be fine. There should be no impact because of the government shutdown. The electronic I-94 system will also be operational. That's important because you want to know how long you're authorized to stay. However, there is one area where there may be some difficulty. That is Canadian nationals attempting to apply for TN and L1 visas at a port of entry or a pre-clearance facility. You may experience some issues. It is a good idea to contact the port of entry or pre-clearance location where you intend to apply in advance. Make sure you can still proceed as you had planned. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is for the context of immigration for most of our clients. This is the enforcement and removal operations we're going to talk about. So these are the individuals representing the government in removal proceedings. During a shutdown, ICE attorneys will essentially focus their attention on the detained docket. They are not going to, I'm not saying they're not going to work on other matters, but the focus will be detained cases. And this may delay matters such as requests for prosecutorial discretion, for trying to reopen your case or dismiss your case. This may cause delays there. The student and exchange visitor program should not be impacted as it also is funded by fees. So you shouldn't have any issues if you're a student or exchange visitor. I-20 should continue to be issued without any problems. The Executive Office for Immigration Review. This is where the immigration courts and BIA fall under. This will see an impact by a government shutdown. Essentially, if the government shutdown happens, immigration court proceedings involving detained foreign nationals will continue. However, all other cases will stop. This means if you have an individual merits hearing scheduled for October 3rd and you're not detained, your hearing will not go forward as scheduled. You will have your hearing date rescheduled once the court reopens after the government shutdown. In addition, if you are, the courts will accept, if it's a court that handles detained matters, they will accept filings. However, if it is a non-detained court, they will not accept filings during that time. The Board of Immigration Appeals will limit operations to emergency requests for stays of removal, as well as matters related to detained individuals. That includes appeals, motions, and federal court remands. The BIA will not process appeals, motions, or remands for individuals who are not detained. Essentially, when it comes to a government shutdown, the only individuals whose cases will move forward are non-detained or detained individuals. I'm sorry. If you are not in immigration custody, your matter will just not be proceeding. Again, once the government shutdown ends and the court reopens, they will reschedule all these hearings that were postponed, whether it's a master or an individual hearing or pre-hearing conference. The next area is the Department of Labor. A lot of people aren't aware of the Department of Labor's interplay with immigration, but they're actually very important when it comes to certain work, non-immigrant visas, as well as employment-based immigrant visas. The Department of Labor provides prevailing wage determinations. They process perm applications. And essentially, if the government shuts down, will come to a screeching halt. There will be no processing of any of these requests. This is because the Department of Homeland Security is not, or I'm sorry, Department of Labor is not fee funded. There's no fees for these filings. So therefore, they will stop operations on the shutdown. The web-based system they use for filing these documents will also be inoperable. This means that even if you already have let's say, a prevailing wage determination that is made that you didn't download, you're not going to be able to access it. If you have a labor certification that was certified, you're not going to be able to access it. So if you have any of these things, please log on before October 1st and download them so you have them. Otherwise, these cases will just stop until the government shutdown ends. The other issue that you will face is this is just going to backlog the Department of Labor further. Department of Labor has been severely backlogged on processing different types of requests. This is just going to make things worse. Citizenship and Immigration Services Ombudsman's Office. If you don't know what the Ombudsman's Office is, I kind of describe it as the customer service manager for USCIS. They do not actually handle immigration cases, but they deal with complaints about service. It can be everything from rude employees to delays in processing to inappropriate decisions. This office does not receive fees. If you're filing a case assistance request with them, there's no fee to do that, and therefore they will shut down as well. So they will not be processing any case assistance request. And if you already filed one, it will essentially stop where it's at, and it would only continue once the government shutdown is open. Couple last little things. Congressional constituent services. So U.S. House of Representative members and senators have congressional services that they offer to their constituents. They also offer assistance with immigration matters, mainly inquiries into delayed processing or requests for expediting. These offices may have to suspend services during a government shutdown. If you're working with one or you need assistance, please make sure you call the office directly to see what their operations are. And the last thing that may be problematic is driver's license applications. You may be wondering why. That's a state matter. I repeatedly tell clients a lot, I'm sorry, it's a state matter. I don't handle that. Well, here's the problem. The Department of Motor Vehicles in the different states often have to use an electronic immigration status verification system called SAVE. This is used to verify status in order to issue certain types of driver's licenses, either new ones or renewals. And if SAVE is not operational, that could delay the issuance of new or renewed driver's licenses. So again, we're not sure if that's going to happen, but it is a potential. Hopefully, we still have a few days. We won't get to this government shutdown, but it's unfortunately looking like we will. If it does happen, hopefully it will be short-lived. But we wanted to put this out here so that our clients and other individuals who are maybe not familiar and are a little worried about what would happen to their case do have some information. The people who impacted the most in this are going to be people who are before the immigration court who are not detained, and those with matters being handled by the Department of Labor. Otherwise, most of the other cases should move forward at relatively normal paces. If you have questions about your specific case, we're here to help. Our number is 212-840-0050. Thank you. Have a great day.